What's up, moviegoers? Welcome to the Marchio podcast. I'm your host, Anthony. In this episode of the Marchio podcast, I'm talking about A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 2010 remake. It is the 9th installment in the series, and it's set in a fictitious town of Ohio and centers around a group of teenagers living on one street who are stalked and murdered in their dreams by a disfigured man named Freddy Krueger. The teenagers discover that they all share a common link from their childhood that makes them targets of Freddy Krueger. The movie is directed by Samuel Bayer. It's based on A Nightmare on Elm Street by Wes Craven and stars Jackie Earle Haley in the tutorial role as Freddy Krueger and Rooney Mara. The movie was released April 30th, 2010, has a runtime of 90 minutes, had a budget of $35 million, and grossed $115.6 million at the box office. You know what? Let me just start by saying, what the hell is this shit? What is this? This is horrible. This movie was horrible. This remake was horrible. They made Freddy look like a puny little person. It didn't make any sense. He wasn't scary. They made him look more so of a burn victim, and it doesn't make any sense. The interesting thing about this movie is that Jackie Earle Haley, who plays Freddy Krueger, actually auditioned for the role of Glenn, which Johnny Depp played in the original A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. So basically the role of Nancy is played by Rooney Mara, but Nancy Thompson, the name is not mentioned. It's Nancy Holbrook. And basically this movie starts off by giving us a backstory, about how and what Freddy is. He's just this figure of imagination. Nobody believes him or anything. But then they throw in this, element of the story where, we find out how he started out and what he did. They did make him a child molester in this and not a child murderer, because at the time before this movie, they couldn't say anything about being a child molester because that was, too negative. But with this movie, they made him a child molester and made him more gruesome and made him more of a villain. And in this movie, they made him more or less, of a hulking, creepy thing. They made him a burn victim, and you can see the certain aspects of it that was done. Now, basically, the movie studio decided to use Craven's original storyline, but tried to create a scarier film. To end that, they decided to remove the one-line quipping Freddy, who had become less scary and more comical over years, and bring back his darker nature. The writers developed the character to be a child molester, something Craven wanted originally to do in 1984, but changed it to a child killer instead, like I stated. And you can really tell that his face was very computer generated. It was CGI, nothing was good about it, and it was really weird. The voice, however, for Jackie Earle Haley and the voice he picked to play Freddy Krueger was really good, and it was interesting. However, it just didn't work. It just didn't have that feeling at all, and it was different, and it was, really weird at the time. I mean, I understand that they try and, remake all these horror movies, but you can only remake certain ones. Like I stated in my podcast episode of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003 remake, which is one of the best remakes of a horror movie ever, A Nightmare on Elm Street tried to capture that essence in 2010, but it just didn't work at all. And it didn't work because you didn't see a sequel to this movie ever. I commend the, movie studio, the cast and crew, the actors trying to make a movie that's original and true to the nature of what the original is. There's a big callback in certain scenes of how things are done and how things are different, but it just didn't work. It just didn't work at all. The dream sequences and the certain, dream song that's in this was good. The aspect of you not falling asleep was definitely present, and more so prominent than it was in the original 1984 version. But this one couldn't execute that in a way. They made Freddy more so, like I said, a burn victim. I feel like the claws were, the glove was a little more pronounced. Jackie Earle Haley is, such a short stature of an actor that he didn't have that figure of being menacing, He's definitely shorter than Robert Englund. I could be wrong. But Jackie Earle Haley is a very underrated actor. But he tried to, capture that essence of what Robert Englund did. He tried, but he couldn't execute it as well as Robert Englund did. Like I said, horror movies are going to be remade over and over again. This was an attempt to remake A Nightmare on Elm Street. Did it work? No. After the success of certain other horror remakes, it just keeps going and going. Will it stop? No, because horror movies are a moneymaker, and horror remakes also are moneymakers. And the reason they keep remaking horror movies is because they want to bring people back. They want to bring everything back. You want to bring everything back. You want to do certain things. Go back to the original. Bring back the original cast and crew. And bring back the original characters. Bring back Heather Langenkamp. Bring back Johnny Depp. Have a movie where their characters are married and their son, daughter, or child, or children are going through this aspect of who Freddy Krueger is. And even though the parents know what's going on, they're trying to help their kids defeat Freddy Krueger. That's the movie I would make. But, other than that, that's all the idea I have. And this whole concept of this being the 9th film in the series is true. It is the 9th film, because the 8th film in the series is Freddy vs. Jason. But this doesn't actually have a connection to the original installment or the original series at all. It's basically A Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, up until Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Even though I stated that the Dream Trilogy, which is 3, 4, and 5, is its own standalone movie, which it is. This movie tried to be a horror movie, but it wasn't a horror movie, and it wasn't a slasher movie. It was just a thriller of a movie. That was it. They tried to recreate scenes that didn't work. It was great to see homage being played to the original. But if you want to do certain things, you want to be different, then change that story and change that dynamic of what this movie is. So let me know in the comment section below what you thought about A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 2010 remake. Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? And do you think it was overdone? And did you like the homage that they played in certain scenes to the original movie from 1984? And do you think this movie should never have been made? Let me know in the comment section below about the questions I just asked. And be sure you click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell for new videos and new podcast episodes on the Marchio Productions YouTube page. And follow Marchio Productions on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And follow me, Anthony, your host, on Instagram and Twitter at misterfilmstock. And follow the Marchio Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll leave a link to all the social media accounts in the description box below. You can check it out and follow along. Alright everyone, that does it for today's episode. I'm your host, Anthony. Thanks for tuning in.
You have nothing to worry about. This won't hurt. One little